comes from the name of a town or a place which was called Judea. Moses never said, I am a Jew. The word didn't even exist at his time. Rather, he was someone who submitted to God. Jesus, peace be upon him, he cannot be a Christian. Why? Because a Christian literally is someone who follows Jesus. So Jesus was definitely not a Christian. However, did Jesus submit to God? Yes, Jesus did submit to God. So linguistically, when you are speaking in the Arabic language, Jesus is a Muslim. Moses, peace be upon him, was a Muslim. And anyone who submits to the law of God and the true religion of God, we call them a Muslim. So maybe whether you know it or not, if you in your heart are following what you believe to be the truth in worshipping God, then you too are a Muslim. And now we're coming to tell you that God has sent another messenger to mankind, just as he sent Moses, peace be upon him, to the children of Israel, just as he sent Jesus, peace be upon him, also to the children of Israel. He has sent a messenger that was not for one specific people. We see that messengers were always sent to specific people. However, this messenger that he sent, his name is Muhammad, peace be upon him. And he was sent as a messenger to all of humanity, until from when he came 1,400 years ago until this day. Now, generally, you might ask, okay, what is this message that he brought? Just as God sent books to mankind in the form of the Torah or in the form of the Gospel, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came with a book called the Quran. Now, I'm sure all of you would have heard of the Quran before, but now you ask, what's the main message of the Quran? Generally, the Quran sends the same message that all of the books before did. And this main message of the Quran and all of the books before was that humankind should worship God and they should worship God alone. Now you think, why, if it's been repeated so often in all of the other books, if it's not a new message, why do we have to be reminded of this? Why did God choose to tell us about this? Because it's mentioned in the Bible, it's mentioned in the Old Testament to worship God and to worship God alone. It's mentioned in the New Testament, it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu books. So why is it coming again? Because we see that mankind over time, they have corrupted their religion. For example, in the Old Testament, we see that it says you should worship God and you should worship God alone. However, we see within Judaism, the Jews have invented books for themselves. Books like the Mishnah or the Kabbalah. And they have said, for example, that the soul of God, the nefesh of God, exists only within the Jewish people. So Jews are actually, part of their soul is part of God. But us non-Jews, unfortunately, we're not the chosen people, so this doesn't happen to us. But this is never mentioned. This is something that they and their scholars invented for themselves. Similarly, we see within people who call themselves Christians, Jesus, when he was asked time and time again, they said, how should we worship God? How should we attain heaven? And Jesus said to worship God and God alone. Time and time again. Never did he say worship me. But you will see, if you go to the Vatican City today, people, not only do they pray to Jesus, but they also pray, and I've seen this with my own eyes, they pray to the bodies of dead popes, asking them to help them, asking these popes to enter them into heaven. Was this the message that was sent in the Gospel? It definitely wasn't. So we see that the people have corrupted their religion that God originally sent it with. So, therefore, God has sent another book and another messenger to confirm and clarify all of these things. So the main message in the Quran, above all things, is that we as humans should worship God. Now you might ask, why do we have to worship God? Why can't we just be good people? As my mother always says to me, she says, I'm a good person, I'll go to heaven. Well, generally, God sets, standards for us. And we see that there's a verse in the Quran where God says, I have not created the spirits or mankind except that they should worship me. So God is telling us that we should worship him. It's the same if you've got a job and your employer says to you, I used to work in a pizza store. My boss says, you've got to make a large Hawaiian pizza. And I say, no, I feel like making a small Mexican instead. How long would I last there? I don't think I'd last very long at all. True? So in the same way, your employer has a right over you. In the same way, God, who is your creator, has an even greater right over you. And if God tells you, just 5 times a day, pray towards me, pray to me, it's very simple. It's something that not only it's good for us, it benefits us, but we're giving our right. In the same way, I remember someone once said, if I gave you $10 or I gave you some free tea and snacks, the least that you would say is thank you. True?
We're about to give
As humans, we have to be grateful. Someone gives you $10 for nothing, you'll say thank you. Think for just a second. just think about your heart, for example. Your heart, it beats by itself. Imagine if it was to stop beating just for a minute. You'd be dead. I don't know if there's any medical students here who could tell me, maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I know, your heart stops beating, you're dead. And this actually beats for you for free. No matter what you do, even if you tell it to stop beating, I say, heart, stop, it'll keep on beating. Why? Because this is a mercy of God upon you. Everything that you have, your sight, your hearing, everything, all of your senses is a mercy from God upon you. If you were to take that away, if I was to take away your eyesight and say, how much would you give me to get your eyesight back? You'd give millions of dollars. But this was given to you for free. By who? By God, the one who created you. So therefore, isn't it worthy upon us that we should be thankful to God? So we worship Him. And God's very specific. He tells us, as I said, He says that mankind, they were created to worship me. Now again, if I give you the example of an employer, when you obey your employer, and he gives you a bit of cash, yeah? He gives you a bit of cash, $10 an hour, whatever. But think about what's in store for us if we worship God in this earth. God says, not only is it of a benefit for you, not only are you being thankful to me, above all of this, if you're to worship me sincerely and you fulfill all of your obligations, then when you die you will be resurrected and you will be put into paradise. Now, to describe all of the beauties and the wonders of paradise, I could be here all day talking about this, but it would suffice to say that we are in paradise eternally, and there is no needs. There's nothing like we get hungry here in the world. In paradise, we don't get hungry. And God tells us that in anything that you could imagine, in this world, if you say, man, how would the food be in paradise? Now, what's the best food in the earth? Times it by 1,000,000. Even that wouldn't compare to what's in there. So this is generally what's waiting for us. Now, once we fulfill all of these obligations, some people start to ask, well, Islam's not just about praying and worshipping God. And especially you hear these days, people are saying, Islam, whenever it's in the news, we don't hear, the Muslims, they're praying. What do we hear? We hear Muslims are blowing something up. Muslims are fighting somewhere. And Muslims are always, it seems as if they're always involved in this. You hear fighting, you hear explosion, you think Muslims. Now, how does this come about? Does Islam sanction this? This is one question that I asked when September 11 happened. I said, if September 11 happened and Muslims carried this out, then therefore does Islam condone this type of activity? So I thought, I'll do my research about this. I'd have to do justice to it. And of course I understood after reading a bit. You see, for example, there's a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said, if you were to kill just one person, an innocent person, it is as if you have killed all of humanity. So, wow. If you kill one person, it's that so much of a big sin. And this person, they will be punished for this by God. Why does it happen then? Well, to explain this, again, there's an example that I heard once from someone. And they said, let's just imagine if you had a brand new car. Let's just say it was a Ferrari too. Being Italian, Ferraris. You had a brand new Ferrari, and you want to show me how great this Ferrari is. Who would you put to drive the Ferrari? Like you'd put Michael Schumacher, true? You wouldn't put a 5-year-old kid. Because if you put a 5-year-old kid driving this car, he's going to smash it. And if the car smashes after this kid's driving it, what are you going to say? It's the car's fault? No, it's the kid who was driving it. He doesn't know how to drive. So in the same way, Islam as a religion is complete and perfect. However, some of the people who claim to be Muslims don't fulfill their job. So if a Muslim kills an innocent person, this does not mean that Islam condones it. It does not mean that Islam is at fault. Rather, it means that that person is at fault. And you will always see, like in the aftermath of September 11, people saying, Muslims coming up, they were getting up on the podium saying, Islam condemns this. As a matter of fact, we are completely against terrorism. Even as Muslims, when we're on the battlefield, if we're being attacked, we are not allowed to kill women. We're not allowed to kill children. We're not allowed to kill priests, monks, rabbis, all of these type people. We can't chop down trees. We can't burn things. I don't want to give a too specific example. Just think of the USA at the moment, what they do in Iraq. Raping people, putting them in these prisons and doing who knows what. Muslims cannot do this. This is something which is specifically forbidden. But we hear as well, this is one thing which always astounded me, Muslims and jihad. You always hear the word jihad, and Muslims and their holy war, it's usually translated as.